I'm going to go ahead and start tucking this skin into the clay I put up around my eyes. So this loose skin right here, that's what we turned out before we put it into tan. And that's what we're going to use to tuck into that clay to make sure that this stays where we want it to. Yep, and you're basically just pushing it. You want to pushing it back in, but I want to make sure I'm getting it into that clay. And this is another part that through the next couple of days, as it's drying, I'm going to have to keep adjusting. You're not going to get the final look and product today. I'm basically just going to probably go ahead and get the skin tucked in and pin it, and probably not till tomorrow or the next day. I'm not going to start shaping these eyes to how I really want them, because it's not going to hold because the clay's too wet. But you just start, and then you can start pulling that. See, but you start tucking that skin in, and it's going to start bringing that eye. Pull this skin back here up a little bit more. But you can see, I think, it's going to need to be tucked like that because it's more of a crease. It's really long eyelashes. You always want to make sure your eyelashes, once you do get finished, and I have a little spot right here, probably a little pop hole that I missed, but I'm going to let that clay, and of course when I airbrush at the end, it'll be okay. But then when you start tucking that in, it's not going to be the finished product right away. I'm going to have to keep manipulating that, moving that as the eye, over the next couple of days as that eye dries. And it'll keep taking shape. Make sure you keep your eyelids turned out where they're supposed to be. And you don't want to manhandle your clay too much under there either. I just want to make sure I have all that skin tucked up in there. That's where it needs to be. See how that eye starts coming together and taking shape. I'm always going to be aware of my eyelashes and make sure they're where they're supposed to be. And that's really all I can do with the eyes for now, until they start firming up and I can get some more shape to them. I've gone ahead and started playing a little bit just to see get an idea of what I'm gonna like. And I've gone ahead and started playing a little bit with the placement of these ears. And I've been looking at some photographs and some references. And I've noticed that usually, and in most animals, whether it be deer or anything, that when they have their head turned in this position, they have an ear listening back behind them, and they have an ear listening in the direction they're looking, okay? So that's something you want to keep in mind when you're placing your ears. A lot of people just like to do the straightforward alert look. It's the easiest and the most common to do, and that's usually, especially with your upright whitetail poses, that's what people want. And that's fine too. They just want, because it's the deer and headlight pose, and that's usually what they look like when they see you moving when you're about to shoot them. So that's what they remember them looking like, so that's how they want to mount it. But on my wildlife and exotics, I like to try to recreate how they would look out in the safaris of Africa or out in the wild. So I'm trying to recreate a more realistic look, a more relaxed look. So this ear here I've been playing with, and of course I have my clay here in the swells of my ears, so I'm going to be able to do some sculpting and maneuvering. Now, for the next couple of days, it's going to take some days for this clay to harden. And in that hardening process, I'm going to have a couple of days to keep kind of adjusting and moving. And I may have this set now, but since my clay is so wet, I may come in tomorrow and it may be started to droop a little bit because my clay is so wet. Now, unless I want to put, sometimes on my bigger, heavier animals' ears, like my buffalo or bison and like my longhorn, I will take one of these metal rods and pin it into place, and hammer that in there. But with like my whitetails and smaller animals like this, it's not a real heavy ear, so I don't have to do that. I'm just going to keep adjusting it over the next couple of days to make sure it keeps the shape I want. And like I was saying, I can come in here and over the next couple of days as it's drying, I can just kind of keep massage it and working it, and any kind of detail that I want to sculpt into that clay as far as folds or swells, because this ear it's cocked differently, so I'm going to try to recreate the folds it would make in the skin, same as I did down here. I'm going to try to recreate that anywhere there's movement in the body. So this ear I'm going to do off to the side and maybe even listening more towards the back. I'm going to kind of, and he might even be raised up a little bit more. And then of course you're going to do your kind of, that muscle usually splits right there. So I'm going to go ahead and make that indentation there from the base of my ear, and then it usually goes around. You can see it's already kind of taken shape. And then I'm just going to look at it and look at pictures and see what you want to do, and make sure my transitions are nice and smooth. I can see where there's kind of some clay here creating not so smooth a line off my ear right here. These are just things over the next couple of days you're going to want to make sure that you're adjusting and studying and making sure you get that position right as it dries. Now, once it starts drying, you're not going to want to manhandle it, because then you're going to crack and pop that clay right off, and you're not going to be able to do anything else to it. All right, we're getting close to the end. Now we just got to go ahead. This is why I didn't put my paste on the end of my nose, because I saved this for last. I'm going to go ahead and slather on some paste here on the top and real good in the nostrils. And I'm going to show you real quick how to tuck the nostrils into the nose holes that we drilled out. And that happens pretty quick. So if you just want to follow along and watch, here we go. Centered where I want it. I'm gonna make sure my nostrils line up. And I'm gonna go ahead and start taking this skin and just start pushing it in. Sometimes there's a layer of skin that kind of comes off from the tanning process and just from being wet and stuff like that. It's fine because that nose, once this dries, I take like a light fine sandpaper and I kind of sand that a little bit. But we're going to airbrush that and make it look like a brand new nose. And we're going to build it up with some Mod Podge and make it look like a brand new nose. So I'm just getting the skin in there where that paste I just put in there. And then of course you want to look at it and make sure everything's the same on both sides. I'm going to make sure I've got the same size nostrils and it looks the same on both sides. And that it's centered. I want to follow this line and make sure I'm centered. Some people put pins right here and whatnot, but on this animal's nose it's pretty basic. So, and it's pretty big and folded really easily, tucked really easily. So I am not worried at all. That's going to set nicely. That's the nose. While it's still wet and fresh, that glue is still wet and everything's still fresh, I'd like to take this like saran wrap that comes when you order your form and it comes on the face of your form. I like to keep that because I'm going to use that to tuck that and hold everything in place as it sets and dries. Now, you can use plastic bags that you get from the grocery store, say a Walmart bag, what have you. But you can use that too. I like to use plastic instead of like paper towels or newspaper or anything like that because that has more of a chance of sticking to the glue and it's harder to get out. So I like to use plastic. So what I just start doing after I tuck that nose skin, I just take a tool and I start working it in there and packing it as tight as I can get, as far up as I can go. I just keep feeding and feeding and feeding it in, and it's going to keep everything that you tucked in place as it dries and sets. And I'm just going to keep feeding, and it's going to seem like a lot, but you know what? You want it nice and tight, and you want that nose to stay, all that work you did on tucking, you want it to stay. You see, I'm just packing it in there until I can't get any more in, and if you need to cut it off, but I had already packed this in here, so I already have enough to do so. And as you can see, that's going to keep my skin and the nose opening wide and open, and once this dries with the form, I'm going to be able to pull that out nice and smooth, and I'm going to have my nose is going to be exactly how I want it. we've finally gotten to what I say for the last step of the mounting process. It's pretty basic, as you saw how easy the nose was, especially on these bigger animals. It goes pretty fast. Usually the lips take a little bit of working in, just because you want to get, especially the corners of the mouth, the skin's a little thicker, so I'm probably going to have to do some more trimming by hand. And I just use, there's tools you can buy from K&C and stuff, lip tucking tools and stuff like that, and I'm sure it makes it easier. In school, this is what we just use, butter knives, pretty much for a lot of things. So I've just stuck with the old habits and the old ways learned. And like I said, this is pretty much kind of backyard taxidermy techniques. So if you just want to learn how to do this at home with your helpful shop assistants, I have, like I said, I have plenty of them. They keep us entertained. Got lots of them running around. We're at the last step here. We're going to tuck the lips, and then over the next couple days, we're just going to keep adjusting and working and making sure we get this guy set exactly how we want it as it starts to dry. So here we go. I usually like to start with the top lip because I want to make sure that's good and centered. I'm going to take that skin there and just start rocking it into that crease that I made earlier during our form prep. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull down this bottom lip as I'm working it upside down. Just tuck the top lip. Now I'm going to pull down this bottom lip, and I'm going to make sure I'm centered up. And I'm going to adjust all these folds and stuff later on, because and that's another thing, in the next couple days as it's drying, you're going to keep kind of running your hand over it and working out any kind of air bubbles you may feel in the cape or under the skin, and just working in. Now you remember your cape's wet. You don't want to rub it too hard because you don't want to pull all your hair out, but you're just going to gently keep working it and smoothing it out and working out any kind of air. See, I got an air pocket right there. That's the kind of stuff you're going to want to push out. You're just going to keep massaging. And if it's showing a spot where it's tenting, then I'm going to use one of my plastic stable. I have plastic sheets that I pin down. Any place where it keeps wanting to fill it with air and tent up, to make sure that that paste dries securely to that form. See, like especially right here, because I want it to go in that crease of that neck muscle. I'm probably going to pin that so that that stays down and adheres to that paste. Just wondered, while I had this form upside down, I just thought I'd go ahead and explain that to you. All right, now once I have my bottom jaw here centered and everything looks goofy.
Oh, Olive is
right in the shot.
Right in the shot.
That's okay. She wants to be a star. Then I'm going to go ahead, same thing I did up top. I'm going to start working that into that slit I made in that lip and start tucking that skin in. And as this all starts drying, this is going to shrink up. All this loose skin, it's going to shrink up to this form. You see, I just tucked the corner of that mouth. So that's all good. And now I'm just going to do the other side and we'll be finished up. I'm going to go ahead and put some pins in the corners of my mouth and around my lip line, so as it's drying, it does not pull open. And I put pins in that are going to stay, that I don't remove. And I might even, see this little hole right here? I noticed there was a little tiny hole here, probably from fighting or skinning or whatever. But I'm going to put a little tack in there too to make sure that stays, the glue catches that and closes it up so it does not reopen in the future. Thank you for watching us here at K&C Taxidermy. Remember to like and subscribe us here on YouTube and join us next time for our latest creation. And we'll see you then.